Alright, let's check this one out.
Trapdoor was finally forced open. Ryan felt a wave of stale air wash over
Cowbell.
him. It was so thick and musty, it almost knocked him off the stepladder in a violent coughing fit. Danny, who was holding the ladder down below, caught the secondary wafts of it. He felt it burn in his throat and sinuses.
Okay.
Still, the two persisted, climbing up into the attic with a mission on their mind. Ryan's great-grandpa had recently passed away after suffering from a long illness. Ever the strange old eccentric, he left all his worldly possessions, save for the very house that contained them, over to Ryan.
Okay.
He had the weekend to clear out all of Grandpa's old junk before the house went into the possession of Ryan's cousin. Talk about a raw deal.
Yeah, that's kind of an asshole thing to do, but
At least
Hey.
Danny was a good enough friend to sacrifice his own weekend and lend a hand. Little did he know, both of them would be sacrificing so much more. What exactly did your grandpa do again, bro? Danny asked as the two of them climbed up
SCP agent.
into the attic. It was a good question. In hindsight, Ryan honestly wasn't all that sure. The old coot had always been cagey about his past. His friends, the work he did, his fighting in the war. Ryan's father had always said that Grandpa knew some interesting people. Strange folks that Ryan's dad would almost swore he dreamt, had the memories not been so vivid. Two things were absolutely clear. From the rest of Grandpa's house, and especially the attic, the man was well traveled. He must have collected peculiar little mementos from damn near every place he visited. The attic looked like some kind of chaotic, unopened wing of the British Museum. A variety of African tribal masks hung from the walls. Boxes upon boxes labeled things like China, Lebanon, Poland, Mozambique. Strange
And out of everything, the cowbell is gonna be the SCP. That's
handmade dolls
weird.
littered the floor between ceramic knickknacks and a bevy of clay pots. Plus, as
a Star is Born.
Ryan thought, who knows what else was in the wide variety of boxes and chests and even
Okay.
burlap sacks randomly placed all around them. Grandpa, it seemed, was a pack rat for the record books. But the job needed to be done. Ryan pulled out 2 reels of garbage bags, one black, one red. Let's sift through the chaos. Anything worth keeping, we'll put in the red bags. Everything else, put in the black bags, and we'll take it to the dump once we're done. And so it began. What seemed like an insurmountable task was slowly broken down, hour by hour, as the south side of the attic became slowly filled by an assortment of black and red bags.
Okay.
Despite the mystery of seeing what exactly Grandpa had collected over the course of his travels, the task soon became surprisingly tedious. The will for any kind of distraction slowly became too great to ignore. That's when Ryan saw it, laying off in the corner over the
The cowbell.
ancient floorboard, a rusty metal cowbell covered in duct tape. That gave Ryan an idea. While Danny was sorting through one of Grandpa's many old chests, Ryan covertly tore all the duct tape from the rusted metal and slipped his shades out of the pocket of his jeans.
Okay, so let's try guessing what this thing does. I'm gonna go ahead and say that either it turns you into a cow or it summons some kind of demon cow.
Guess what? Ryan called out. Danny turned to see his friend wearing the shades, preparing to do an absolutely atrocious impression of Christopher Walken, wielding the cowbell like a magic wand. I've got a fever, Ryan said, and the only prescription is more cowbell. To perfectly cap off his extremely lame joke, Ryan gave the rusty old
Very
cowbell a
lame.
confident ring.
Yeah.
He was expecting to share a laugh with Danny, or at least laugh while Danny groaned and cringed, but that isn't what happened. The rusty old sound of the cowbell seemed to swell and consume the entire attic. If Ryan and Danny had been in any position to describe what they felt in that moment, they might have compared it to be suddenly submerged in a large pool of ice-cold water. That feeling of sudden full-body numbness, the panic, the way your lungs involuntarily force out the last of your air supply in one desperate gush,
Okay.
designed to escape at all costs, even though you don't know what you're escaping from. A pure injection of dread, fear, and anxiety. Suddenly, the attic didn't
Okay, so it immediately gave them their survival instincts.
feel like a safe place to be anymore. Their visceral reaction was akin to what would have happened if a third man climbed up that ladder into the attic, wearing a hockey mask and wielding a blood-stained machete. But no, It was still just the two of them in there. Danny shivered and rubbed his arms, now a pink crop of goose flesh. Did you just feel that, man? Danny asked over a lump in his throat. Like a real freaky feeling? Ryan nodded. He couldn't really find the words. The teeth of the Hydra felt like they were upon him now, the feeling of being prey, hunted by some terrible and unseen predator. We should get out of here, dude, Danny said. We can always get the rest tomorrow. I think maybe we overworked ourselves, you know? Mind's playing tricks on us and stuff? Ryan was more than happy to agree with this theory. It was, after all, better than any of the potential alternatives. He didn't even want to bring the bags they'd already filled down out of the attic tonight. It could all wait for tomorrow, when the vibes would be better. But as they prepared to leave the attic that now felt so wrong, Ryan noticed something. A scrap of paper, a note hidden amongst the pile of duct tape that he'd so hastily torn away from the rusty cowbell so he could make his stupid joke and ruin everything. Something about it just compelled him to pick it up and read it. The note read, "You've seen it. Now he can hear you. You've touched it. Now he can see you. Never mind. If you hear it, he can touch you."
Okay, why is the warning on the duct tape? Why is it not more clear? Why is Grandpa not putting that shit in like a safe box inside of like a big ass, or throw the shit into the ocean? I don't know.
The two men were out of the attic, slamming the trapdoor behind them a few seconds after that. Hopefully it would be a little more than Grandpa having a sick sense of humor. And what do you think are the odds that these hopes were misplaced? Later that night, after grabbing burgers to decompress from the nightmarish experience, Ryan finally made it home. Alone in his dimly lit living room, he flipped on the TV, hoping to drown out the uneasy feelings still gnawing at him. He never felt so glad that his cousin was the one inheriting the house. A large part of him never wanted to set foot in there ever again. He was half tempted to just leave all that junk up there in the attic to rot. Ryan checked his watch and saw that it was 11 p.m. That was enough TV for the night. Wasn't like he was really paying attention anyway. He grabbed the remote and switched it off, then nearly ripped out his skin. With the screen off in a dark room, the TV became a reflective piece of black glass. And in that reflection, Ryan saw a tall, thin figure standing right behind his couch, large enough that his head was out of view. With an audible scream, Ryan turned and stumbled back, but there was nothing standing there.
For a second I was thinking of the shy guy.
Ryan didn't want to just dismiss it all as being a result of his imagination, not after what he'd experienced today. But there was no trace of the thing that he'd seen in the reflection. Stress does make the mind play tricks, doesn't it? He was sure he'd read that somewhere. After taking a few minutes to compose himself, Ryan decided it was just time to go to bed, but not before he liberated a kitchen knife from the knife block, just in case. You never know what's out there after all. Soon after, Ryan was lying in bed, the knife and his cell phone on his bedside table. He couldn't chase it all out of his mind. The terrible feeling he and Danny got in the attic. The man that he swore he saw in the reflection of his TV standing right behind him, so tall and thin, it was making it almost impossible to sleep. Then, his cell phone started ringing. The contact name flashed on the screen. Dan the man. It was Danny. Why on earth would he be calling at almost midnight? Ryan scrambled for the phone, picked it up, and answered. Danny's voice was trembling, his voice shallow and quick, his breath heavy. He sounded afraid, not just spooked like they were earlier, but well and truly afraid. Dude, Danny said, barely louder than a whisper. I think there's someone in my place. Ryan's heart sank. What does he look like? Was Ryan's immediate instinctual response. Danny didn't find the question strange. He's tall, real tall and thin. I'm worried I'm seeing things, man. I think it has something to do with the attic earlier. Danny? I saw him too. Get out of the house. Meet me in the diner. Ryan bolted out of bed after that, immediately grabbing the knife with his trembling hand and opening his bedroom door. That's when he saw it again. A huge figure, almost 7 feet tall and rail thin, with huge staring eyes and oversized facial features. Ryan screamed and the intruder darted back into the hall. Ryan following soon after, only to see that the hall was completely empty. What was going on here? Ryan leapt into his car and made a beeline for...
That's terrifying. It's not attacking just yet. which is
The
interesting.
all-night diner. He was jumping at shadows. He kept checking the back seat and seeing movement just outside the windows. Soon he and Danny were in the diner, sharing their stories. Both had seen the same figure in their apartment, the long and lanky freak of nature, always just out of sight. His hands, Danny added. They looked too big for his wrists. Big, freaky hands. Ryan hadn't seen its hands, and he wasn't exactly looking forward to the possibility. And all this because he rang that stupid cowbell in his grandpa's attic. This thing. It must be who the he from the note was.
Okay.
Danny left for the bathroom to relieve himself. In all this fear and tension, he'd been holding it in. Ryan was left alone in the booth, where his adrenaline levels were beginning to fall off, replaced by a sudden wave of fatigue. He started to drift off. Then he woke with a terrible start. The thin man was standing over him.
Run.
His huge hands
Run,
wrapped
bitch,
around
run.
Ryan's throat, squeezing. The man's awful face was twisted into a terrible, malicious grin. Neither Ryan nor Danny died that night. No, they in fact died a week later in a mysterious fire that consumed the home of Ryan's grandpa, with him, Danny, and Ryan's cousin inside.
Oh, I was gonna say the cousin saved himself, but nope.
The night that we just described to you happened again and again and again, with the terror and violence of the stalking creature escalating until their minds were broken and they could take it no more. That's just what happens when you ring the bell. Because of the outright horrifying nature of this haunted cowbell, classified as SCP-513.
Wait, so did the SCP light the house on fire, or did it make them go insane to the point they light themselves on fire?
By the SCP Foundation. Despite only being a Euclid class, its containment procedures are nothing short of extensive. In order to prevent any accidental ringing of the bell while in containment, 513 is suspended in a large cube of reinforced ballistic gelatin that holds it in place and prevents any
It is gel. Okay.
movement. The gel cube is regularly inspected for any signs of degradation by a team wearing both extensive inner ear protection with noise-canceling earmuffs over the top. If the state-of-the-art cube is deemed anything less than pristine, a replacement project begins. This is where things get quite gruesome. After the Foundation discovered what exactly SCP-513 could do, they realized that they needed a contingency plan in case of a containment breach. As part of this plan, they selected a team of 10 members of D-Class personnel and removed them from the barracks, instead taking them to one of the containment site's operating theaters. There they removed the entirety of each man's inner ear, rendering him completely deaf. These deaf D-Classes are the only ones
Fucking SCP Foundation, holy shit.
permitted to handle SCP-513 when it's transferred from an old gelatin cube to a new one. They're the only ones who are literally guaranteed not to be able to hear any accidental ringing, which would, in this case, be a literal death knell. If someone is exposed to the ringing, the official Foundation policy is to have 2 guards stationed with them at all times, hoping to document any unusual activity. These guards are under orders to apprehend the hostile entity, known as SCP-513-1 if at all possible. So far, research seems to indicate that only the affected are able to perceive the monster, let alone physically interact with him. Any D-Classes who've been
That's interesting.
exposed to the ring of the cursed cowbell are to be terminated at the first sign of mental degradation. For anyone else who simply can't tolerate living under the terror that is SCP-513-1, termination is an option that the Foundation provides upon request. Being stalked by this monster isn't just terrifying. It's a slow, relentless descent into madness.
Okay, but what does it do? So far it feels like the bell cow makes you insane, more than the actual monster who we don't even know what it does.
The results are fear, dread, paranoia, exhaustion, and eventually severe depression from both the fear and the lack of sleep. On a long enough timeline, termination is practically inevitable. There has been no proven way to stop the cycle or deter the entity once the process has begun. Unless the Foundation can figure something out, it will continue to mean certain doom for anyone who's exposed to it. There's a lot that's frightening about SCP-513, especially for seemingly being an unassuming little cowbell. It's not unusual, after discovering the true nature of the anomaly, to think back to the words of warning scrawled on the fateful note. You've seen it. Now he can hear you. You've touched it. Now he can see you. Never ring it. If you hear it, he can touch you. If you ever class spies on the bell, as many at the SCP Foundation already have, you have the lifelong discomfort of knowing that every sound you make can be perceived by this nightmarish creature. But it is worth considering
Okay.
that it might be even worse the other way around. Maybe one day you're just walking down the street, minding your own business, wrapped up in the humdrum worries of daily life. Then you hear it, the gong of a rusty old bell, rung by someone who doesn't even know you're in the vicinity. You feel an icy pang of dread, a feeling that perhaps your little corner of the universe somehow just got darker. Fear, panic, despair. It all washes over you, and you don't know why, so you just keep walking. You never saw the bell, never touched the bell, but you still heard it. As the result of little more than a cruel accident, you can't see him, can't even sense him, but he can still touch you. Now go check out Could These SCPs Be the Scariest on the Internet? Not compilation.
Okay. Not they have to put that it's not a compilation. Yeah, they've been doing nothing but compilations for a while. Alright, that's a knowledge. Let's watch this one next. I don't know. Your favorite SCP? Why? I don't know. This one was kind of boring. It's a cool concept, but it's just boring. I don't know. I don't think it's that scary or interesting of a concept. I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna watch the knowledge one next.